Welcome to the Twin Cities Real Estate Show, sponsored by Bricks Real Estate. I'm Kirk Duckwall. Joining me is Chad Vandelot and Brian Durham, and we are the House Geeks. If you have any questions for us, you can give us a call at 612-207-5388. Again, 612-207-5388. Happy to help answer any of your real estate related questions. And if you're thinking about buying or selling a home, feel free to reach out to us as well. Be happy to help with that. Check us out online at housegeeks.com for the latest and greatest searching and researching tools. And follow us on our House Geeks Facebook page. Just type in House Geeks. You can see our upcoming events and keep an eye out for classes that we have. And watch us record live most Wednesdays, where you can see us take multiple takes just to record one section. All right, today we are talking about the second half of how houses are built. Here in the Twin Cities, last week we kind of ran down from soil conditions to grading and fill, foundations, drain tile joists, framing, house wrap, and kind of left off with starting up with siding. If you're curious about last week's show, you can go to our Facebook page and you can actually see all of our shows that we record there to cover that, or go to SoundCloud as well. Yes, for the edited version that doesn't have all the outtakes of the Facebook Live. All right, so getting started with the siding. There are many different types of siding, and I think you'll see people argue tooth and nail on which ones may be best or worst. I'm not really here to wanting to discuss that so much as just maybe some of the pros and cons to the different types of materials. So, going really early on, you had brick houses, right? And one of the biggest pitfalls with brick homes is needing to do tuck pointing.
Keeping the water away from it.
Right, exactly. Because if water gets into the cracks, it can start
spalling.
Splitting, breaking, whatever it may be. Brick homes, though, very energy efficient in the summertime. At least the one that I grew up in stayed relatively cool overall throughout the year, unless it got up to about like 90 degrees. But it also holds the heat too. Yeah. So, the biggest thing to keep in mind with brick homes is having them tuck pointed, making sure that the water doesn't seep in and start causing it to crack.
But outside of that, they're relatively maintenance free.
Yeah, what makes me sad though is when I see one that's been painted.
Oh, that's a pet peeve of mine.
Yeah, because once you paint brick, well, then you just keep having to paint brick.
Yeah.
And same it goes with stucco. That's one of my pet peeves of stucco is people that paint that as the way to, I see a couple little cracks, or it's discoloring a little bit. So instead of having it pressure washed or cleaned or whatever it may be, they paint it. And, so if I ever see a stucco home that isn't painted while I'm out with clients, I'll just be like, do whatever you can not to paint this thing.
Side note, if you have a stucco home, you probably don't want to pressure wash it yourself. So have someone come out and do that for you. I don't want to get that phone call. I used to pressure wash my house.
And the big lines running up and down.
Exactly.
I wrote my name into the home. Asbestos siding. Lo and behold, yes, there is asbestos siding here in the Twin Cities. We see it all over the place.
St. Paul.
Yeah, I had a home in South St. Paul that had the asbestos siding. What's funny is it's like the early form of fiber cement siding. The stuff is super durable unless you hit it directly sideways with like a golf ball or baseball or something along those lines.
Large hail.
Yeah. Overall, though, the nice thing is places like Menards or whatnot, they have the replacement shingles for those.
So non-asbestos now.
Non-asbestos, so you can eat those.
Yeah.
It's okay.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Downfall, obviously, being is that if you do need to have it removed or do want to have it removed and have a different siding on, it can be a little costly to have it appropriately removed and disposed of.
If you're going to remove it, a lot of people just go right over the top of it.
Yeah, it's you have to have the abatement done, and that does get costly. So I would say if you're looking at a house that does have the asbestos siding, you may want to plan on working with what you have
But it takes paint really well and will probably outlive us all.
Yeah, last through nuclear war or something.
Mhm.
Okay, so then you have wood siding. You know, a lot of people are, I think, overly worried about wood siding. Oh, you know, I have to paint it. I have to keep it from rotting, woodpeckers, whatever it may be. Honestly, I think that's one of the bigger issues around here is woodpeckers.
Yep.
You know,
In certain areas.
Yep. So, honestly, though, I love wood siding, especially if it's like cedar, plank, or something like that. I mean, you just got to paint it. you
Yeah,
know?
that's the whole thing. If you keep up on the maintenance, the woodpeckers will stay away from it too.
Yep.
You know, until there's exposed wood, that's when they want to go after it.
I mean,
I heard a trick. I don't know if it works or not, but supposedly if you put steel wool in the hole that the woodpecker has started, it will come back and it will hit that steel wool with its beak and not like it and not return. You guys heard that same thing?
Well, I know for mice, you shove
Steel
the
wool,
steel
keep
wool.
lights out.
Yep. Yeah. So for all of your rodent needs, give us a call. Then you have the aluminum siding and metal siding, steel siding. You know, obviously the downfall there is that they can, you know, they'll get dented. They tend not to deteriorate in quite the same fashion as your wood siding. Then you have vinyl. You know, and I think both the vinyl and aluminum and steel, I mean, you're going to be dealing with expansion and contraction. So don't be surprised if you see, I mean, how many times do we walk by and we see that the panels have popped loose?
Yeah, little gaps.
Yeah. The one, though, my biggest one that I have the issue with is your fiber composite, whatever you want to call it, siding, you know, that really you started to see in the early 70s. You know, and you still see this stuff. And there was lawsuits that were had with these products because of, I mean, they're like sponges, if not well maintained. I mean, you go out there and you see, but if that paint is not on there for a very even short period of time, it just sucks up the water. And I think we talked about like the buffalo board from that same period. You kind of double whammy because now the siding sucks up the water and it goes into the sheathing that is, you know, a sponge as well.
A positive side to that siding, though, is it's pretty easy to remove a board, pretty easy to find another board to put in, and then you simply have to repaint it. So the maintenance of it or the repair of it's a pretty simple process.
Yeah, it's relatively low cost. And then like we talked about last week, you know, a lot of the homes that were built in the 70s and into the 80s and into the even early 90s was all cost saving.
Yep.
You know, keep material costs as low as possible. However, I don't know what you guys think, but I really feel that the newer homes, basically I would say 2005 and forward, it seems much more geared towards more of a quality product. Now, yes, are there builders out there that are throwing up junk? I completely think there are. But I think more and more builders are focusing on using materials that aren't just the cheapest out there.
I would agree, and from a personal note, my mother, my brother, and myself, we all bought custom homes built 2005, right around 2005 and newer, for those reasons that you're describing.
Yeah, I mean, you see now these you know, fiber cement siding, and you also now have like have you seen it? It's almost like a super compressed plywood, where it's very, very thin layers of wood, and then they compact it under high pressure. Stuff's supposed to be like rock solid as well, but not with quite the cost that fiber cement has to it. So you're seeing, I feel, stepping away from the low-cost materials, at least recently, in those homes.
And the aesthetic appeal to them has gone up quite a bit.
Oh yeah, you find the multi different types of siding that they're using.
We're seeing shakes, and we're seeing siding run in different directions. And
much more architecture to the homes.
kind of
The
going back.
Mediterranean pillars like you used to see back in the homes from the 30s.
Yep, and in those 2005 and up, they're starting to do some craftsman-inspired exteriors too.
Yes.
I think the biggest thing to remember with any exterior is just keep up on that maintenance.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
If
and
you
know,
keep up on it, it's going to save you a lot of money in the long run.
And honestly, anybody that does have a new home, especially on your woodwork, not necessarily the siding, but your trim woodwork. Remember, the builders paint of coat or the coat they put on there, it's not meant to last more than like a year or two because you're supposed to pick the color that you want to put onto that. That's just a primer they're throwing on there. That's why if you go see these homes, even ones that were built in 14, 15, you'll see that paint just chipped off, and you actually start to see the deterioration of that wood. You got to make sure
And
that
sometimes not even chipped, just worn off.
yeah. That was meant for owner finish on a lot of those houses, and people forget that. So if you have a newer home, step out, take a look, and if you see it wearing down, you get your color on there quickly. When we come back, I want to get into a little bit about insulation. And as in the Twin Cities here, wow, do we see a real variety of insulation quality, energy efficiency, and what to look out for in your own home or when you're shopping for a home, because it really is dollars and cents saved in your pocket if you have good insulation. If you have any questions for us, you can give us a call, 612-207-5388. Again, 612-207-5388. Check us out online at housegeeks.com, where you can find great home evaluation tools, access to search tools, see upcoming events. You can download our House Geeks app if you have a smartphone. You can go there as well to get that. And watch us record live most Wednesdays through the Facebook Live. All right, we will be back in just a couple minutes. You're a bad person, Brian. Bad.
What did he say? Can we say it louder, or can we not?
No,
Should we not say it louder?
I don't think it's that bad.
Oh, it's nothing bad.
No,
It's just whisper.
he's just messing with you.
It's the only person who can hear it, and he loves that.
Yeah, I'm so excited. All right. This next segment, I want to be able to go through insulation and electrical.
Okay.
You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Welcome back to the Twin Cities Real Estate Show on AM 950, sponsored by Bricks Real Estate. Check us out online at housegeeks.com or go to our Facebook page by just typing in House Geeks. Today we're talking about how homes are built, part 2. If you didn't catch part 1 last week, you can listen to us on SoundCloud or go to our Facebook page and see that there. So we're talking about how the homes are built from era to era, some of the pros and cons of each of the different materials that are used, going all the way from ground to roof, and the different systems involved. We were just talking about some of the pros and cons about siding. I want to get into insulation here real quick, real exciting topic. Just thrilled. What's insulation for? Well, it's to create basically air gaps or spaces for air to keep a barrier from the exterior to the interior is the best way to put it. Some of the earliest types of insulation was just wrinkled up newspaper stuffed in a wall, right? And so you're creating that barrier. And then you look at, what they call insulated windows. That's exactly what it is. A pane of glass, an air barrier, and a pane of glass, right? You looked at the closed cell spray foam insulation. It's just little bubbles of air everywhere, right? So what you're trying to do is prevent airflow from the exterior directly into the interior and putting up as many roadblocks for that to happen. And so you see like the fiberglass insulation, that's the idea, right? It's not going to easily go through there. So what do you have? Yeah, old newspaper. And then, and you'll see that up into the homes, 1920, 19 or so, maybe 1915, somewhere in there.
That's fun when you start doing the demos on that and you start looking for the oldest newspaper you can find.
You find cool like decks of cards and things like that. Be able to shove stuff in their walls.
Corn
Cars
cobs.
being sold for $3.
I saw one time had corn cobs shoved in there.
Interesting. Where was that?
It was in Iowa.
I did.
I didn't really want to see it. It was in Iowa. It was an old farmhouse down there.
The other interesting one is when they cut a hole in the wall by the medicine cabinet where they put all their used razor blades in, and it drops in between the wall.
Interesting.
All right, that's a new one to me.
I have seen that. I've seen the hole by the medicine cabinet.
Yeah.
I know exactly.
That's what it's for.
Interesting. I did not know that. I had neither of those as insulation. Razor blades, great insulation. Right. So you have old newspaper, really kind of the first insulation that you would see around here. I'm sure somebody's going to comment about, well, what about like Adobe homes? No, or straw, right? But all forms used to give the same goal. But yeah, so around here, old newspaper one first. Then you saw our good old friend asbestos again. Vermiculite, yes.
That was the name brand for
Yes.
that big one of those.
And you will see these. I had a 1950s house that had the vermiculite in it, and also a 1914 as well. Now, I don't know when either was put in either of those, but...
One side note, just because it has vermiculite doesn't mean it's asbestos, too. I went through this with one in St. Paul, a friend of mine bought, and there was vermiculite, and it was actually somehow got into the ductwork.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had to we made sure everything got tested, and it came back, there was zero asbestos in that. And that was a 1940s-ish house.
Okay.
So not always.
Right. I'm pretty sure, with all the different asbestos materials between insulation and siding and, of course, flooring, can you just build a house just out of asbestos?
If you want it fireproof, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, the wrapping for the pipes.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, so, but, obviously the concern is, and it is very easy to get that airborne, so that's one where if you find it, you do want to have it tested, like you're saying, because that could get spendy to remove, or even just, just hazardous to have in your system, especially if you, have forced air like you're talking about.
And it's pretty cheap and easy, quick turnaround to have that tested as well.
Yeah, it's like 3 days and a couple $100. It's not real expensive.
So the next is fiberglass insulation, and then that's still used to this day. One of the things I really like about it, we can tell almost right away if there's ever been water issues. You look at it and it's black. You got something probably going on with moisture either getting trapped in the wall or previous water damage in the basement or something like that. It is one of the better and easier to work with. Besides that, you're probably gonna get really itchy.
It's very cost effective.
Yeah, it's very cost effective. And then you have your, like we talked about, your spray foam closed cell. A little more spendy, but really you can fill in every gap with that. I know one of the builders that we like to do work with. They right all around the sill plate down in the basement where some of your worst air intrusion can happen. They always spray seal all of that. And
most of my inspections lately, they comment on having the rim joists pull out the fiberglass insulation and spray with the closed cell foam along all of the rim joists.
I'm not 100% on this, but I believe that's code now.
Because it just started,
the
inspectors just started picking that apart within the last year and a half, 2 years.
I think they just changed that, so.
Gotcha. And then you have your blow-in. A lot of times this is just like ground up cardboard or newspaper, and you can go buy these huge bags of this stuff. It's kind of funny going from newspaper back to newspaper, what comes around goes around.
Recycling.
Right? It's recycling. Yeah. But this, it's shredded up, and you just spray it with a big reverse vacuum cleaner almost, and just shoots it up into the attic or down into the wall cavities, whatever it may be. Yeah, I mean, you'll hear people argue for all different types, which is their preferred. But at the end of the day, the better sealed your home is, and that's, you're saying going around on the rim joist, go down into your basement, look. If there is an insulation shoved up in there, do that, because just put your hand up by there on any moderately cold day, and you'll feel that cold air just coming on through. So there's a lot of things insulation-wise that can be done easily and not super expensive, especially just adding insulation up in your attic. Simple to do and can save a lot of money. All right, so unless you guys have any more points on insulation,
I think
we've exhausted insulation.
Yeah.
Well, I want to get into electrical, and I don't know if we're going to have time with the remaining 1 minute in this segment to get into as much. So do you guys want to make fun of my Federal Pacific panel that I have in my basement?
I wasn't going to go there, but since you mentioned it, yeah.
Yeah, so, there's electric, and one of the reasons that made me want to do this show was I was shocked at how many realtors really don't know much about how homes are built and some of the main safety concerns or just general knowledge of homes. And one of the things we hope to do with the content of this show and some other things that we're doing is eventually put together a continuing ed class that can cover this, because I think good knowledge about how houses are built is really, really important, especially, like you always say, Chad, you're about to make the biggest investment of your life. Knowing what that investment really is, I think, is really, really important.
Well, and if you could head a couple issues off before you get it under contract and then pay for an inspection, you can save some big money there too.
Yep. All right, we're going to take a quick commercial break. If you have any questions for us, give us a call, 612-207-5388. We'll be right back. Let's kind of try to get through electrical quickly. I know that's a tough one.
We'll just hit the basics and fuse panels.
It's AC current. All right, on to the next.
AC current, 3 wires.
Probably AC, but maybe DC. Not quite sure.
Use your tongue to check if it's alive.
For the most part. Yeah, you're good. It's great. Does the light turn on when you flip the switch? Awesome.
I'll tell you that new tool and I still got to give you the money for that. Which one I actually have?
EMF detector.
Yes. Well, no, that's great for electrical because
you can just put it right by the outlet and
yep.
it'll start to move. And
right,
tell
and
you if it's live.
Well, and you can follow it up through the wall. Mm-hmm. And what I found is, so I was like looking, and it was a light fixture, and you could tell that this one was working, this one was working, this one was burnt out, but it was working, yeah. And this one wasn't working. One of the
so you didn't have to go cannibalize light bulbs from another room to see if it's working.
Yeah. Just ran it along. Worked real well.
Now that I know it works well,
give it back.
You can buy me one just to pay me back.
that's one way.
Because I already bought one that I don't like. Paid $200 for it. And it's a piece of junk. And this old school.
So if anybody out there wants an EMF.
$300.
This old school one works way better.
All right, you ready? No. We are. Here we go.
Let's do it live.
You are listening to the Twin Cities Real Estate Show on AM 950 with the House Geeks. Today we are talking about how homes are built, Part 2. Curious about Part 1, check that out on SoundCloud or go to our Facebook page where you can see the previous or listen to the previous episode there. All right, so talking about how houses are built from the ground up to the roof. We're on to electrical. This is an area I hear a lot of people talk about, and I think because, well, hey, you can get fried, shocked, killed, whatever, playing around with electrical. I love how you're just cracking up over there.
You forgot to mention that your house could burn down. Too.
Well, that was kind of getting to the killed part with it.
Unless it's asbestos.
So, this is one of those areas where I think because people don't understand the systems, that, everything that they hear leads them to think that, like you're saying, the house could burn down along those lines. And what is it you really want to know? And honestly, one of my clients recently, he was really scared of electrical. I said, go over to Home Depot and pick up one of those books about electrical. Read it and learn to understand it and how it works, And once you get a basic grasp of that, I think you'll have a better respect for the systems and understand the different systems. But, for a quick rundown, what you'll see initially is the knob and tube wiring. You hear that, right? You go into those Minneapolis or St. Paul homes, the old ones, you go up into the attic. And so what is knob and tube, okay? Well, you have a wire that's running along, and then every so often there'll be a little glass insulator that holds that wiring, and that runs all around through the house. And they have the two wires that run right next to each other for the alternating current, and then those come down to your outlets, and that's where the two wires meet for your outlet. Okay. What's one of the concerns with knob and tube, right? Well, it's a little more exposed wiring than you might find with today's modern wiring. But do we still see it? Do we still see, is it still being in use today? Yes.
100 years later?
100 years later, yeah. What do you want to worry about? Well, you got to worry about the squirrels in the attic, maybe possibly chewing on that thing, right? So that's the kind of the earliest form of electrical that we see here in the Twin Cities. Next, you will see the cloth-wrapped wiring, the black cloth wrapped, and if you open it up, you'll see that it's the cloth, and then it's usually paper.
Yep, paper wrapped wire.
Yep, paper wrapped wire, and there's your two wires, right? I hear way too often people go, "Oh, it's knob and tube." That's not knob and tube. That's cloth wrapped. Okay, so you actually have a little more insulated wire, a little better protected wire, and you see this stuff being used up into the 1950s, 60s, somewhere right in there.
Even a little later in some houses.
Yeah, and you can actually still go out and buy rolls of it today.
Yep.
Okay, you will see these people that are doing these like decorative light fixtures. They'll use that cloth wrapped wire hanging down with the cool light bulbs. So that's kind of the next form. Then you have and right about the time that you switch from the cloth wrapped, not exactly close, you see the switch from fuses to breakers. Okay. Well, okay, what is the difference between a fuse and a breaker? A fuse, if you have too much of a current running through that fuse, it's going to break its connection because it burns the metal, whatever, filament out and stops. Permanently break the connection. And, if you talk to a lot of electricians, they'll actually tell you it's a safer system on the part of being shocked from the outlet. Now, is it safer when you actually go into the box to play with the fuse? No. And that's why they switched. They switched to breakers because now, instead of having to go in when you have an overload, you can actually just flip the little switch. Problem is, it doesn't work all the time, every time. So that is why...
Especially at your house.
What Brian's referring to is... there's a certain panel out there that inspectors just cringe at. Go down do yourself a favor, go down into your basement, look and see if you have a Federal Pacific breaker box.
Yep.
If you do, YouTube Federal Pacific and you'll see why it's not good.
The blazes of hell fire video. Yeah. So this is when you see the switch, and breakers don't always throw. I mean, you can still get, and this is why you'll see, you know, you go down and you'll see burnt or fried breakers and burnt outlets, whatever it may be. The breaker didn't do its job, or maybe it took a while for the breaker to do its job. This is where you now have like backup systems, especially at your sinks in the bathrooms and in the kitchen. You'll have GFCI protected outlets. So this is like another breaker right at the outlet. So it shuts the flow off there, and so it might, you know, it doesn't even necessarily go to the panel at that point.
That is just an extra level. I mean,
Right.
If it's a grounded outlet, you don't have to have GFCI outlets. So it is.
Yeah. Are you sure for in the kitchens and baths?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll argue with you on that one after
But
the
another
show.
use for the GFCI outlets is if a home has been converted from two-prong outlets, ungrounded two-prong, to three-prong outlets, code now states that if you put one GFCI protection within that circuit, that will now meet code.
Well, true GFCI protection, not just swap out, and that's something you would see people do for a while. And it was allowed for a little while, and then I heard about a year ago that you couldn't just take out the ungrounded, throw in a GFCI without actually having the grounded line to the panel to fix it.
Yep.
But-
Or putting the GFCI
For
right in the
electrical,
breaker.
call your local inspector. No, but yeah. So you have your GFCI, which is meant to be an extra added layer to protect. Now, one of the things that you hear inspectors talk about a lot, and you know, I can't wait until we get the inspector in here to talk a little bit about some of the problems that they see. But you see, you always hear this ungrounded. Oh, it's an ungrounded outlet. Well, is that a bad thing? Well, look at how many appliances or gadgets that you have that use a two-prong outlet, right? It's not a bad thing unless you are trying to use something that needs a three-prong. So you put a converter in there and you put it on a two-prong, and then you have an electrical surge or a problem, and that's where you create the serious issue. A two-prong outlet, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just a two-prong outlet, right? So it's that for grounded items, you want to make sure you have grounded outlets, and you have done what needs to be done for it to be to code depending on the municipality that you're in.
And typically those items are high-end audio equipment and
Computers.
and
Yep.
such.
Yep, microwaves.
And most of those things you want on surge protection on top of that anyway.
Exactly. You know, so what is the modern, you know, today we have, you know, typically Romex or, you know, vinyl wrapped wiring running through the house to a breaker system.
Preferably not Federal Pacific.
Yeah. with GFCI outlets, and it's a three-wire alternating current system. You have your hot, your neutral, and your ground. Honestly, hooking up or replacing outlets, doing things with lights, it's relatively, if you have some practice, know what you're doing, you can learn how to do it, you know? And that's why I say get out, read some of the books, if you know some YouTube, right? And so
Just make
that,
sure you shut the breakers off before you do it.
well, and exactly. I mean, I'm not sitting there saying, "Hey, everybody, go out and work on your own electrical." No, don't just jump in on that. But if you know and you learn and you take the time and you study and figure out what's going on, and it's not the biggest deal in the world. Will I work on my own panel? No. But will I replace an outlet or a light switch? Yes. You know, and you are, as homeowners, you're allowed to do that. You know, that's
basic maintenance.
yeah, exactly. All right.
You can't
so
replace your own panel though.
what?
You can't replace your own panel.
Well, that's good.
And one thing also, ran into this recently, there are some insurance companies now that will not insure a home if it still has fuse boxes.
Doesn't surprise me.
So yeah,
Yeah.
so just something to be thinking about when you're out there looking for homes.
All right, so please don't call me when you get shocked. Read the books, learn.
Just call the number you're going to call Chad anyway.
Okay, should I just do a disclaimer? Make sure you always hire a licensed electrician. Pull all appropriate permits. Please provide. All right, plumbing. Yeah, plumbing. Okay, so, what do you see in plumbing? Well, your oldest houses, you may have lead main lines coming from the street. You'll see that, just It's almost like to the point where it's green. It's coming up through the ground. You got a lead main line. Not seeing as many of those anymore as maybe I even did 10 years ago. A lot of that's being replaced.
Yeah, a lot
Cities,
of the municipalities are making people replace them.
Yep.
Through that process.
But really, the first type of plumbing was your galvanized pipes, right? Well, what's the problem that we run into with the galvanized pipes pretty consistently?
They corrode from the inside.
Yep. And so you have low water pressure. You know, I've seen somebody showed me a picture of one they pulled out.
Oh yeah.
It must have been like just a little bit bigger than a paperclip hole. You know, that was running through. The water was trying to get through that. However, I did hear about a new system now that they have that's almost like a router that can go in and they run it right through the sink or run it right through the bathtub or wherever the water line, and they can actually clear those lines. Yeah, so a less expensive potential way to fix a low water pressure problem with galvanized. Now, typically, you only see the corrosion or clogging restriction on your horizontal lines, not your vertical pipes. So even if you go in and replace the vertical one or horizontal ones in the basement, you may increase your water pressure drastically. And it's, you know, today with the new PEX plumbing, makes life a whole lot easier.
Yep.
Probably have to do another disclaimer to not do your own plumbing.
Don't.
But yeah, once again, I mean, if you're curious about this, one of my investor clients, he just hooked up his own water heater and did all that. He's like, yeah, it was really easy, you know. But he went out and he read the books. He figured it all out, you know. So with you have the galvanized, and then it goes to copper. Copper plumbing is the next in line, and I'll tell you, I hate copper with a passion. Not that it's bad, you know, because you don't run into the corrosion problems, but I mean, how many times have you had to like sweat a pipe because you had a leak or something? Or maybe it's just my plumbing up at the cabin. I don't know.
Yeah.
You guys giving me weird looks. Do you ever sweat a pipe?
No, I hire licensed plumbers to do that myself. I realize that my skill sets lie elsewhere, so when it comes to plumbing work, I let the licensed professionals do that.
I spent many years doing plumbing and heating and cooling while I was in high school and college, so I'm very comfortable with it. I've done lots of it.
Oh.
And I was licensed.
You know what?
So it's okay.
I don't believe you. All right, we're going to take a commercial break. We're going to finish up with the different types of plumbing used in today's homes. Feel free, if you have any questions for us, give us a call, 612-207-5388. We'll be right back. Well, we are...
How long is this segment?
This is a real short one.
Like 8 minutes?
Yeah, 8:50. You want to talk about roofs. I know you want to talk about roofs.
We need to talk about roofs. We should quickly hit on
HVAC. Well, I'm going to blow through the rest of plumbing. Just blow through it. And I'm going to blow through HVAC. And I'll let you...
the major types of...
Well, I want you to tell your thing about the Tesla roofs, because I do think they're pretty cool. All right. You ready? Here we go. Welcome back to the Twin Cities Real Estate Show, sponsored by Bricks Real Estate. We are the House Geeks. If you have any questions for us after the show, you can give us a call at 612-207-5388. Again, 612-207-5388. Today we're talking about how to build houses successfully, shock yourself, and flood your basement. No, just kidding. How houses are built here in the Twin Cities, basically from the ground on up, and the different materials that are used and some of the pros and cons to each. We're kind of talking about plumbing, left off at copper. So you have galvanized, then it goes to copper, and then you get into, I want to say like the late 80s, early 90s, the switch to CPVC piping, right? Super brittle. Hate working with it. No, it was used very short lifespan on that. It was basically they tried it and then went right back to copper again. And you still see copper being used to this day, but more and more and more are actually switching to what's called PEX piping. I love PEX. PEX is my friend because it's plumbing I can actually do. It's a flexible plastic pipe that it's just you feed the stuff through and you clip it with a big clippers, and you have your crimper to crimp your connections. To me, it feels like it's working with Legos.
Well, it is. It's connect and go. I mean,
yeah.
It's as long as you have the crimping tool, it's super simple.
Yeah, it's plumbing it's made a lot easier. I mean, still I fear drain lines, but at least now for water lines, I know how to do that. So, and that's really your rundown of the different products. So, if you're looking at a house and you go into the basement and you see the new flexible plastic, that's great. That's an upgrade that they did, and that's what you want to see. One of the reasons they did this, a lot easier to run, a lot less expensive to purchase and install, and one of the biggest reasons is it will not have freeze damage. All right.
Well, it still can freeze and burst.
Well, at the connections, it can.
Yeah, the connections can still pop, so be careful with that.
Okay, I did not restart the clock. We can pick up, though. I just got to reset the time here.
That's fine.
Thought it set. Stop it. I just got to figure out how many minutes we actually have left. Stop it. You're just a bad person.
We've established that, and we're moving forward.
It wasn't me, it was Chad.
Okay, so 4 minutes and 30. Help me. 4 minutes and 30 seconds.
Okay.
Or 34 minutes and 30 seconds to 36 minutes and 52 seconds.
So it's 2 minutes and 22 seconds.
2 minutes and 22 seconds off of
850.
850.
So 22 from 50 is 38. No, be 28. Wait.
I need
850 minus 232?
Yeah.
So that would be 18. 6:18.
6 minutes and 18 seconds?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry. Think about that one for a second there.
I double checked it.
Thanks, Chad. Thanks for the vote of confidence. Never doubt my math skills.
6:18. Another reason that we don't do live. All right,
We'd have a producer if we were doing it live.
we left off at PEX and freeze damage.
Yeah.
Much less prone
Yeah,
to freeze damage. Whatever.
Just move on from where we're
Yeah.
at. We were at a good stopping point.
All right, 3 minutes. We're going to spend 3 minutes on HVAC, and then you can go to roofs. I'll let you talk about roofs. Are you okay to talk about roofs?
Go ahead and talk about them. I'll just touch on the Tesla.
Tesla, okay. Here we go. So, moving on to HVAC systems. Coming to the end of the show here, so I'm going to kind of just plow through this one. HVAC, so kind of the original ones that you had your like coal-fired gravity furnaces. This is what's called the octopus, all right? These were the ones that you had the big arms, and they were like, all the pipes were asbestos wrapped. Good old asbestos comes back again. All right, then it moved on to boiler heat. Okay, this is your radiant heat. You'll see different types of radiators. The one that stands real tall,
Baseboards.
Yep. And up you get to around maybe the late 40s into the 50s, and you start to see baseboard, boiler heat. And boiler heat, I mean, honestly, you're seeing it installed all the way up into the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when kind of everybody switched to a forced air system. Or one of the ones that I really want to keep an eye out for is electric heat. That gets very costly,
Yes.
very fast. So if you're looking around and you see baseboard heat, make sure that you see a boiler in the basement too.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't, that's a pretty good indicator you may have an electric system. Typically, the electric system will also have dials on every room wall, or the dials right on the radiator themselves. For forced air, though, you have, that's just basically heat the, now I can't think of it, the heat exchanger. Fire goes into that, and then the air moves by that. It heats the air shoots out, right?
Mm-hmm.
These systems typically 15-year half-life, or where it's where you start to need to worry about it might go out. You also see these wall mount systems, like, and now this typically is not going to be a primary, but you may have a supplemental. Maybe you have baseboard, then you have a wall mount for your AC or light heat as well. And then you can also have like the high pressure ceiling mount ones where they put it up into the attic, and so you'll have, and you'll usually see this combined with a boiler system.
Yep.
You know, the boiler system, that's what we have in our house, and then the high pressure up in the ceiling.
The forced air, whether it's air handlers like that or a full-on forced air system, what that allowed was to go from window ACs to a traditional whole house air conditioner. That was the big step there.
The real thing to keep in mind, I think, with the HVAC is, gravity fed. It still works. It's a simple system. It can still work, right? These things it could be 100 years old. It'll still work. Boilers. I mean, we see boilers regularly. Boilers just go and go and go. The actual forced air, that's when you start to see the shorter life expectancies. However, do I still go out and see forced air systems that are from the 50s and 60s? Yes. Are they maybe necessarily the safest operating? You'd want that checked because of cracked exchangers and things like that.
And are they efficient? That's the other
Exactly. Yeah. 40% efficiency or something like that. Okay, so kind of finishing off. A few minutes left. Roofs. What to know about roofing? You kind of have you have clay roofs. You don't really see much of that around here. Just concerns about hail, cracking, freezing, whatever it may be. It just tend not to see it. It's more expensive and just doesn't work as well for our environment. Wood shake roofs, like cedar shakes, those things last forever. Honestly, you can get a serious lifespan out of those. So even if it has moss on it and it's gray and whatnot,
that doesn't mean it's bad.
Doesn't mean it's bad.
Cedar's supposed to turn gray.
Exactly. And then you get into your asphalt shingles. Okay, 3-tab. Sometimes you'll see like some of the earliest. You'll see like what was almost like the octagon-shaped ones, and then and then you have or people will use the sheets. They'll roll out. Usually you'll see that on the garage or something. Not too much on the houses anymore. Now almost everything is the architectural shingle. Typically you can see those aging because the edges start with any asphalt shingle. The edges will start to curl. The granulars will start to fall off. You get an idea. Most of the roofs around here, your typical asphalt, you're not going to get much more than 20, 25 years out of them.
And
Brian,
a lot of them will be replaced before then due to hail damage.
You had mentioned something. We just got just about a minute left. But these new Tesla roofs.
Yeah,
I didn't even know about this until you showed me. This is an awesome idea.
Tesla has come out with a roof system that basically it's a bunch of solar panels. They replace them on the roof.
Yeah, it actually replaces your shingles.
Completely replaces them, and then you have batteries in the house. It charges the batteries, and the batteries draw down the power for the house. And they're going to start actually installing them next year. I know some contractors are going through the process to learn how to install them now.
Yeah, I mean, what a great system to. I'm really interested to see the pricing on what.
Supposedly the roof is going to be pretty similar. I think where the major cost is going to be, of course, in the batteries. But if it can, if it takes you off the grid,
just get a couple car batteries.
I think you need more than that. But it will also charge your Tesla if you own one of those too.
Of course it would. Yeah. Why wouldn't it?
Exactly.
All right. Hopefully you found this 2-part show helpful and fill you in a little bit more. There were a couple things I was really hoping to get to regarding flooring and cabinets, but you know what? We covered the basics. If you have any questions for us, would like to know more specifics about any of these, there's some great books like we talked about that you can get. We'll see you again next week.